Reinsurance Compliance 101. My name is Stoll. I am the owner of Preferred Solutions, Precision Claims, and Preferred Reinsurance. We work with dealers all across the country, helping set up the reinsurance companies, helping manage them, helping structure them properly, and do everything that you need as a dealer to make sure that you guys are taken care of. When I started talking to some people about this presentation, this is what I do every day, all day, is talk to people about reinsurance, how it's supposed to work, what it's supposed to look like, how it's supposed to function. But, I've got my take, but I thought I really need to sit down and have some conversations with some other people in the industry, some people that we probably don't know, and really get their input when we build this presentation. So I had some conversations with a gentleman by the name of NIADA, who is, he's one of the big attorneys out on the West Coast who's really helped the IRS understand what F&I reinsurance is all about. So if there's ever a reinsurance tax piece that has to happen, Andy's one of the best guys to have a conversation with. I had some input from David Kasich, who is with Mark Nelson, CPA and attorney. Also some really good information from him. Mark Genova, who is the owner of Reinsurance Associates. So I tried to compile a lot of these guys and have some good conversation with them and talk about how we wanted to structure this. So they all had plenty of input. The problem was, by the time we got done, this presentation was like 4 hours long. And we only have 30 minutes. So the good news is this is just a 30-minute conversation. The bad news is this is only a 30-minute conversation. So I have to ask you all for a favor. There's going to be questions, I have no doubt. So if you want to grab me at the end of the presentation, because a lot of the reinsurance questions are very specific to your own setup or your own question. If you guys want to wait till the end, grab me. I'll happily stay here as long as you guys want me to stay. Also, you can come down to our booth later on. I'll be there all day. Just grab me and I'm happy to have a conversation. Does that sound fair? The learning objectives for today's presentation is identify the proper reinsurance setup, the ability to follow the flow of reinsurance premiums, understand expectations of the reinsurance process, and describe the reinsurance opportunities. This asset has seen many dealers through rough times. Most recently COVID. Reinsurance has helped a lot of guys out. This asset requires strict compliance to ensure its preservation. The good news for you all, there's a lot of great administrators out there. It's just a matter of you all having a conversation with them and figuring out which group works best for you. One of the biggest pieces of advice that Andy Weil had given me when we started this was, have a conversation with your administrator, but then don't be afraid to go have a conversation with an attorney and make sure that what he says, review his documents, and make sure everything is the way it's supposed to be. Turnkey reinsurance programs. The problem with turnkey reinsurance programs is turnkey is a really bad word. It's a great buzzword. It gets everybody excited. When you start looking at reinsurance providers, you go, they got a turnkey program. That's awesome. Reinsurance providers should not have a turnkey program. I've been doing this a long time. I've never seen two dealers that are the same. They think different, they've got a different plan, they've got a different ownership structure. They're just different. Turnkey's a great word, but this needs to be structured for you as an individual dealer and figure out what the plan is for you as you go down the path. Reinsurance is not a set it and forget it program. Reinsurance is a program, we all like to say set it and forget it, but you need to understand as a dealer, what is this doing for me? What can I use this for? What are my losses? What availability do I have? Can I use these dollars as we go down this path? What can I use them for? Your reinsurance provider should be a wealth creation partner, an expense containment partner, and a resource for information for important decisions. We are a wealth of information. You guys just have to dig it out of us. The good ones are going to give you the information that you need to make good business decisions, and I'll show you a little bit as we go. When we talk about setup, what questions should be asked. So if I'm sitting there having a conversation, and a lot of administrators do this, they're having the conversation, document review by your attorney. So as you're sitting there having the conversation with your provider, and you're interviewing somebody new, you should be asking, can I get a copy of the trust document? Can I get a copy of the reinsurance document? Can I get a copy of the retainer, the dealer agreement, the warehouse agreement? When was the last time you guys saw that? You guys have executed copies of all of your stuff. When we've taken over reinsurance companies in the past, we ask for these things so that we can keep them in the file, so if there are ever any issues, that we can go back and dig into them. Because the trust document and the reinsurance documents, they're the rules of the game, right? The trust document is a document that lays out the rules between the insurance company, or the reinsurance company, the insurance company, and depending on what kind of trust it is, could be the bank, right? The banks in the custodial trust agreement has a fiduciary responsibility to handle the funds. Do you guys understand what all those are? It also has in there, which a lot of people don't realize, is the investment strategy. That's in the back of your custodial trust agreements. The reinsurance agreement, again, is really the rules of the game. Has anybody ever seen the reinsurance agreements? Does everybody have a signed copy somewhere in a folder? Well, that's good. The ones that raise their hand, that's fantastic that you do. But a lot of you don't. You should really get a copy of those. You should really read that and understand it. It's amazing how many people just get it, file it, and forget it. Don't even read it. Well, the administrator sent it to me, gave it to me. I don't really need anything more than that. Let's take a look, let's move on. The warehouse agreement is another one that is a really big deal. How many guys and gals have set up their reinsurance companies and sent money off to the administrator and didn't have a reinsurance company set up, but you were so happy that you was coming down the pipe, you just sent money off without a warehouse agreement. That warehouse agreement's a pretty key piece. You send them money, but they have no instruction on where to put it. There should be a warehouse agreement out there that says, hey, I'm Jeff Baker, I'm gonna send Kevin Stoll, my administrator, $100,000 from my reinsurance company, even though it's not gonna be set up for 90 days. Well, that's my money now. We don't have some type of agreement in place. I love that y'all trust us, but there's documentation that has to go along with those types of things. One of the comments that was made was, spend a little to keep a lot. And Andy was full of information and little quotes. He said, don't be afraid of the IRS. Be afraid of that attorney that has to help dig you out of the IRS because you didn't have it structured properly. Expectations. Dealer expectations. When you're sitting there having a conversation with your administrator, you're interviewing them, there are things that you should be asking for. Reporting. How do I get reporting? What do I get? Do I get a session statement? What's my timing? Financials. How often do I get them? Tax returns. When do I see them? How many of you all have seen a session statement before? How many of you know how to read a session statement? That seems like the same people keep raising their hand every time. It's amazing the number of times we hand out session statements, or we're meeting with a potential client, they give us a session statement, and we're like, all right, show me what you got. And they're like, here you go. Well, what's your loss ratio? I'm not sure. I think it's down here at the bottom somewhere. These are questions that you need to ask your administrators to educate you, to help you. How can you make business decisions if you don't know what you've got, right? Financials, how often do you get them? Where do I get them? Do I need them? It's amazing the number of dealers that are now tied to their bank and they want to show the financials from the reinsurance companies to help them get a better rate or stay in trust or whatever it may be. Make sure you're getting your financials on a regular basis. Make sure you understand your financials. When you're talking to your administrator, your potential administrator, you're talking about claims handling. How's this program going to work? Is this a self-administered program? A lot of the buy here, pay here style programs are self-administration. Is there a third-party administrator involved in this? What do the payments look like? What's the turnaround times? What's the process? So if one of my customers goes in and gets their car fixed, what does the payment process look like? Where does those money come from? If I'm a self-administrator guy at the end of the month, how do I get reimbursed? What does this look like? Is this a net program? Am I subtracting all my losses out of what my remit's gonna be? Or am I sending in the total payment and then you guys are writing a check back to me? What type of documentation do I need for any of these kinds of things? One of the funniest ones here is remit timing. How soon do you need to get money into your administrator? We like to see on our side, we like to have everything in our house by the 15th of the following month. Not the month after the month, or the month after the month after the month, or not when you feel like it, right? Expectations of the administrator. So that's me. So my job when I'm sitting there having a conversation is to talk about what we're going to give you. So from a reporting standpoint, what does the remit look like? If you're an independent dealer, is it a matter of just logging into the portal, clicking on the contracts that you sold, the remit goes off, you get a remit report at the end, you write the check, you send it in? If you're a buy here, pay here dealer, do I run a report off my DMS system and send it into you? What does that whole process feel like? What does that look like? How do I get to the portal? What do I do there? It's amazing, the number of people that don't understand these pieces. Same thing on the claims administration side. We have a lot of conversations about self-administration on the buy here, pay here side. The interesting part about that as we go is, do you know how to administer a claim? If there's ever a challenge, what do you do? How do you do it? If Kevin walks in and has a claim, and it's not something that's covered by the contract, and you approve it, but then Kim walks in later on and has that exact same thing, everything's pretty close to the same, and you don't approve it, what kind of problems could that cause for me? What kind of problems could that cause for our reinsurance company, right? Those are all conversations that you need to have with your potential administrator. Those are the kinds of conversations that we have. I need to explain to you what that process looks like. Claims payments, how quickly does this work and what does the process look like, right? By the end of the month, the way a lot of guys do is you send in a claims run of everything that's happened under the self-administration program. By the 15th, because we expect that you're going to pay us by the 15th, we want to make sure that you have your money back in your company from your reinsurance company back to your dealership or whatever it is, back to you by the 15th of the month. You need to plan on those funds. You guys use those funds to operate. You need your dollars. You need to understand how that works. Same thing on the remit timing, right? When's it going to go in? I want to make sure that everybody understands what we've got and how it works. It appears we have a couple slides that jumped out of place here. So I'm going to backtrack for just a second. One of the best slides that was left off here was the Followable Money. Does everybody understand? I think the majority of people get it. So if I do a $1,000 remit, where does that $1,000 get split up into? Where does it go? How's it work? What happens to it? I think everybody knows, but it's amazing that they don't. I'll give you a quick example. We met with a dealer in a particular state, and we sat down with this dealer as we were putting together his program and said, what is your admin fee today? He had a $1,000 contract, or remit per contract that he was sending in. We said, what's your admin fee? It's like, I think it's $150. Okay. He goes, but I don't really understand. He goes, because my loss ratio is like 85–90%. Like, how many contracts you guys do in a month? We're going through the whole thing. And the numbers were just not making sense to us at all. So I'm like, all right, we need to follow the dollar and see exactly what's happening. I felt really bad for this guy because he didn't really get it. So out of that $1,000, he had a $175 admin fee. He then had a percentage of premium fee on top of that. He had a couple more fees on top of that. So when it all got said and done, out of that $1,000, there was $350 that was going into his reinsurance company. And he couldn't understand why his loss ratio was so high. Isn't that sad? But it happens all the time. It's amazing to me the number of people that don't understand the flow of the funds. You guys are really smart people. Dealers are incredibly smart individuals. You guys know this stuff better than anything. But you really need to be able to follow the flow and understand where the dollars come from. What do they look like? What's it supposed to feel like? How much goes into my reinsurance? What's the timing of that? How often am I seated? How long does it take for those dollars, so that $250? How long does it take for that $250 to go into my reinsurance company? Is it seated as written? Is it seated as quarterly? What exactly does it look like? When's it coming in? A lot of carriers out there seat as written. There's a lot of carriers out there that sit on it. They don't seat it right away. When you're talking about admin fees with your providers, make sure you get a good understanding of what it is you're paying. Because a lot of times there's multiple pieces to this puzzle. You've got your admin fee, and a lot of times you have a reinsurance admin fee on top of that. That typically is a yearly fee. What does that cover? Right? That's called, what a lot of us call it is BRTs, right? Books, records, and taxes. I think most of y'all know what that is, right? That payment is every year. But not everybody seems to understand that. Those dollars for those admin fees right there should be in some type of retainer agreement that spells out exactly what you have. So when you're having this conversation with your provider, make sure you understand what it all is and what it all covers. Because hidden fees just suck. I felt really bad for that poor guy. He didn't really know what all those fees were built into his program. And then he had, so he's got that big admin fee, and then he's got a BRT fee on top of it. This poor dude was paying like crazy. Understand the flow of the funds. And the easiest way to see that is going to be through your session statements and your financials. That's why those items are important to you guys. That's why you need to understand how to read them, right? You can see all that stuff. They got to break it out. They can't hide it at some point. Sometimes it's got to come out and smack them right in the face. So you need to understand exactly where it is, how it works, what it does. That should be that session statement is a great way to follow the flow, right? Opportunities, where's my money? Trust accounts, investments, distribution, loans, those types of things. Trust accounts, we constantly have conversations about trust accounts, reserves held, how much is in there, what can I do? Do you just write me a check back at the end of the month as an administrator? So the dealer signs a check, sends it into the administrator, he pulls his fees out, he sends you your money back? Does it get deposited into a trust account? What does that look like? The one thing that you need to remember when it comes to reinsurance, it's your money. No matter where it goes and what it is your money, right? We have a lot of administrators out there. We obviously all sell against each other. But when it breaks right down, it gets right down to it, it's your money, guys. It's not Kevin Stoll's money. It's not Taylor Bird's money. It's not Jalen Rose's money. It's Jeff Baker's money. It's Alan White's money. It's your money. You need to know where it is, how it works, what happens to it. Who's held in the reserve? Who has access to those funds? That's why the custodial trust agreement, talking to Andy and David, is an important piece, right? What that is that says, this gives you that arm's length piece. That in insurance, there needs to be some type of arm's length piece between you, the dealer, and your funds. right? And I mean, this sounds kind of silly when I say this, but the owner of State Farm can't walk into the bank and say, give me $100,000, can he? Not that there's an owner of State Farm, but I think you guys all get what I'm saying. So should any dealer be able to walk in the bank and just go take money out at any point in time? Seems like that might be a little sketchy. The trust account is probably the easiest way to get that arm's length piece, right? Because there's a fiduciary responsibility by the bank to make sure that everybody's working within the custodial trust agreement. That tells you everything you need to know. Investments. This is the other piece. This is the big deal. Can you invest? How many of y'all know if you can invest or not in your reinsurance company? A lot of people don't know. We get that question every day. When we're talking to somebody that we're taking over a deal, well, I don't know if I can invest. Well, with us, you can. It's right in the documents. The custodial trust agreement spells out what the investments can be. So if you went back and looked at your trust agreements, you should be able to tell whether you can invest funds or not. The best part about this, right, is what do you pay tax on with a reinsurance company? Investment income, right? Make as much money as you can with investment income. It's your money, right? Make money on your money. But obviously there's rules that need to be followed, and you need to pay attention to your trust account and talk to your provider to see what you can and can't do. We've got great relationships with Morgan Stanley, Raymond James, Wells Fargo. They understand how to set up reinsurance accounts for dealers. They understand it, they get it, they know how to do it. Distributions, this is another good one. Who, how much, and how often? That's a conversation you need to have with your providers, right? It's your money, but how much can I have? When can I have it? How often can I do it? Distributions, how much, how often? One of the questions that we get asked all the time, we stumbled on a deal a couple months ago where this dealer was taking, he had a partner. They owned everything 80-20. The dealer that owned everything, that had the 80%, he was taking out distributions. The guy that owned the 20% didn't get a dime. We ran into that with another guy, 50-50. Well, the 80-20 guy, that guy that had the 20% ownership, he's supposed to get 20% of whatever came out of there, right? That's the way it works. That's what it says. So common ownership in stock. If I own 80%, and we took out 100 grand, that 20% owner's getting $20,000 of that 100 grand. Everybody knows that, right? So if I got two partners that are 50-50 and I take out 100 grand, 50 should go to this guy, 50 should go to this guy. That's the way it's supposed to work. We've stumbled across many of these deals where this doesn't happen. That's a tax problem. That's an IRS audit issue. Make sure you understand how that's supposed to work when you've got distributions. Loans. Is the IRS okay with loans? So we learned a couple years ago, there was a big case called outer hopping. If you're flying overseas and you want to fall asleep, break out this case, read it, it's about this thick, it is absolutely riveting. It's about a jeweler in Arizona. And the interesting part about it, the guy ended up paying money. But the good part about this case, what came out of it, was that we all learned that the IRS likes, and they're okay with loans. They're okay with it. So feel comfortable if you have loans. What the IRS doesn't like, not making payments, not having loan docs, not having an amortization schedule, not having any proof that you took out a loan, not having any of that information. It's amazing the number of people that we all talk to that, oh yeah, I took out, last year we took out $1.5 million. Really? That's fantastic. Where does this say that on anywhere? Because on your financials, it looks like it's still sitting in the bank somewhere. Oh, we took it out. You got loan docs? For what? That's my money. You're darn right it's your money, but guess what? If you get stuck in an audit, guess who's paying? You are, for sure. So just make sure if you're doing loans, you're using some type of interest rate. Yeah, believe it or not, the AFR rate is a very valid rate to use. The nice thing about the AFR rate, cheap. Or go into your local bank that you've got a relationship with. We do this a lot. You go, hey, come back to us, tell us what you got, we'll use that. But we want it documented, right?
Those are the big things right there. We're just about out of time here. My advice to you all when you start talking to your administrators is to interview them. I got a call last week. We were being interviewed right now. And it was kind of cool because this is a younger guy, doesn't know much about reinsurance, doesn't know how it works a whole lot, but they've been in business. His dad's been in business a long time, and he's now taking over a piece of it. And his dad said, why don't you get the reinsurance piece now? So the cool part about this young guy is he knows nothing. So my advice to him when we sat there and wrapped things up on the last day was, talk to me. I'm going to give you all this stuff that we talked about today. Here's my trust document, here's my reinsurance document, here's my retainer agreement, here's what our flow of funds look like. Here's an example of if we had a $500 premium, your $20 admin fee, this fee, whatever they were, here's your BRTs. We gave him all that stuff, so he had everything. I said, take this, go talk to your attorney, talk to your dad, and then go talk to another administrator and see what you get from that. You need to interview your administrators because let's be honest. In 2022, you put $2.45 million into one reinsurance company. If you do something wrong and end up with an IRS audit, how would you like to pay the tax on that $2.45 million? Plus penalties. Set it up right the first time. So here's a couple takeaways for you guys. And this came from Andy and David and some of the other guys. If you're going to use this reinsurance as a personal bank account, you're going to get burned. This is not a personal bank account. This is not something you should run your dealership on. They all strongly believe that the absence of a standard custodial trust agreement or a trust account leaves the arrangement vulnerable to challenge because there's no arm's length there at all. Those of you that have reinsurance companies today, do you know if your reinsurance company is in good standing? Have you ever asked your administrator for that? Can I get something that tells me, can I get a good standing certificate? Ask. Especially if you've been with somebody for a long time. You want to make sure that they're filing the proper stuff on the older stuff. Okay. Now, I'm quite confident I dumped a lot of information on you all today. But the one thing that I want you to know is there's a lot of great administrators out there. We're all happy to have a conversation. You need to pick the one that's right for you guys. But you need to understand what it is you need. The last thing, I'll leave you this and then I'm done. If it doesn't smell right, it's probably not right. Thanks for coming today. I appreciate it very much. Have a great afternoon.